Education Incorporated to promote positive moral character in the workforce all across this nation and all around the world. Positive moral character is just as valuable in our work environments as it is in our schools, in our homes, and all other aspects of society. And that's in your first paragraph on page G. The second highlight on that same page is paragraph 2, and it's the first sentence. It says, what is the ultimate goal of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program? The goal is to prevent problems from arising in the first place. And I cannot emphasize enough how throughout the program, when you're teaching this to the teachers, you have to mention this to them so they can in turn, when they're training their staff, their employees, their managers, their supervisors, they remember to say, this is our goal, so that one day we don't have to be correcting situations. Right now, we're all still practicing, we're learning, we're coming to train to that perfection that this program can bring us to. But it says it's the goal to prevent the problems from arising in the first place. Now, these two underlined words are key. They will be on your exam. It says it takes training and then practicing what you have been trained in. Okay? Now, I tell people, no matter what program I'm teaching, I remind people, when you're training this people, it could be your children, could be at home, could be in your workplace. When you are not practicing the peaceful solution, people that you're training in the peaceful solution will spot it immediately. Oh, that's not the peaceful solution. So I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for us as instructors and as trainers to be very mindful of our words and our actions, no matter where we are, no matter who we're interacting with. Okay, and I just want to really emphasize that. And I want you to always, everywhere you have the opportunity to write it, remind yourself of that. Doesn't matter who you're talking to, where you're at. Please be mindful of your behavior, of the way you speak and conduct yourself, because that's really the best practice that as instructors we can have, okay? That people should notice in us that we conduct ourselves in a very different way than what most of society has been trained to do so. Okay, your next, on page 6, and on that one I'm just going to note it for your records, for your information. There's a pre-assessment form, and that form is more of a self-evaluation. So one of the key points that you must remember is that in many workplaces where you'll be training people, they will not have gone through all of the other Peaceful Solution Character Education Program manuals or units prior to this one. So this is why it's very important that when you're covering Chapter 1 with your staff, with the people that you're training, that you really focus and lay out that strong foundation in Chapter 1 about moral character in the workplace. And we're going to, as we go along, you're going to see why it is so important that you start instilling in your students the importance of moral character and having moral character in the workplace. Okay, so one must be, see how it is here again? One must be taught, trained, and then practice what one was taught. Okay, that is on page 6. It's part of your pre-assessment form. But when you're teaching this manual, that is key, that you remind people. This is the self-evaluation form. Now, as supervisors, of course, they're going to be evaluating their staff as well, but always the first person we evaluate is ourselves. Okay, and I will remind us to remind the people we're training that humility is very important. It's not always easy to see if we're doing something negative, or we're carrying a negative trait, or if a negative trait is being exposed in us. It's not, it takes a lot to be able to recognize that in ourselves, but it's very important. Okay, it's very important that we do learn to do those self-assessments constantly, diligently, consistently. okay? Page 9 is your next highlight. And on page 9, you have character and personality. So these definitions will be on your test. Okay, that's why they're highlighted here. It is the first sentence of each definition, and it reminds us that when we're taking the test, okay, you can just quote your first, like the first sentence of the definition. So character is a combination of morals and beliefs that dictate how we treat others, how we treat the environment, and how we treat ourselves. Okay, so when you're training your staff, you have to remind them of that, because you have to also remember that most people, unless you're really being trained in character, we can easily confuse our character with our personality. You know, I tell people when I'm teaching the program that most of us, before we started learning about character, most of us chose our friends, you know, the people we hang around with, based on personality, based on we like the same things, or we were very similar in, you know, how we conducted, or if we were quiet, or if we were, you know, more outspoken, or if you're an introvert or an extrovert, you know, you relate more to people who are like you. That's personality, okay? So I always tell people you have to remember that, and you have to remind people it's not the same thing. The definition for personality is a combination of personal preferences, qualities, attitudes, likes, and dislikes of an individual. Now, here in this manual, they do reference a lot, and that's one of the things that you need to train yourself in. That, for example, how a person dresses, okay, can be mostly personality. You know, some people like a certain style or certain colors. However, when it touches the aspect of modesty or immodest, then you're talking about character, okay? So you have to remind people of these things because, again, you can easily confuse one with the other. You say, well, how I like to dress should be what I prefer is my personality. Yes. However, being modest mentions certain things that label it as appropriate. And even in the workplace, they'll use the term professional. Okay, and it doesn't even matter what kind of job you do. You know, that word often comes up when they're reminding you of a dress code. So, of course, you always have to remember these things. And one of the things that I want you to be mindful of is remind yourself of these things when you're listening to people, when people are making comments to you, when people have questions, okay? For example, there was one comment made one time, and it was not related to this. They were talking about just different overall things, but there was an article that was brought out, and the staff was talking about that article, and one of the ladies in the article made a comment, and she said, you know, if society would be, you wouldn't see the crime, and it would be better, society would be better off if, for example, at a bar, the bartenders used judgment to stop serving alcohol when a person is already drunk. Now, I want you to think about that, because if you're sitting in that conversation, or somebody's exposing that, you know, that comment, it at first can sound, well, you know, yeah, they're trying to be mindful and they're trying to set up parameters and safety. But notice how that goes against what the peaceful solution teaches. Because is a bartender responsible for my actions? So you see how it can easily be mixed when a person is making a suggestion, a comment, and that is why I cannot stress enough the importance of us studying these books, really studying the books, and look out for these things. When people are making suggestions, when people are asking questions, when people are presenting scenarios, we must be very careful. And it's okay to say, can I get back to you on that? I would really like to check more with my team on how to appropriately address that question. Because, like I said, sometimes People think they're making, a positive suggestion, but it can be a very minor thing that goes against what we teach in the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. Okay, so be mindful of that. Okay, your next highlight is on page 10, and the title of that page is Values and Character. It says, our values are the principles or qualities that we consider to be important or worthwhile. Values play a key role in the formation of our character and of our personality. Some values pertain to what we want to accomplish in life and what we consider beautiful. There are personal values such as hygiene and appearance, as well as music and art. And that's your first paragraph on that page. Okay, on paragraph 2, you're going to highlight the sum of our values is called our value system. And our value system is a means by which we rank or prioritize the things that are important to us. Now here we have to also be mindful about when we're teaching this that we remind people our value system can change. As we get more educated and as we learn more or as we grow older. Some of our experiences sometimes, they start shaping us and we start realizing, that's not as important as this over here. So it's okay that our value system changes, but we always have to remind people the importance of us prioritizing is because based on how we prioritize is how we're going to make decisions that affect our lives. But we also have to remind people that we need to stir away from the mentality, well, it's my life. This is what I do. This is what I like to do. Because we want to start training people to be mindful that everything we do affects not just the individual making that choice, but it affects society as a whole. And we want people to start considering, how will my actions affect my neighbor? We want them to stop thinking, this is my life, and it doesn't matter what unit you're training. Right now we're talking about the workplace manual, but it's important that no matter which unit you're teaching, but especially the one in the workplace manual, we have to be reminded constantly that our actions do affect our coworkers. How I conduct myself, how I speak, how efficient I am when I do my job does affect my coworkers. And I need to be mindful of that. Okay? So you want to start instilling these things by constantly bringing to their remembrance that it doesn't matter what they might have known before. Okay? Because let me tell you, in some college classes, they do teach you, hey, it's survival of the fittest. Whoever you need to step on to get there, that's what you got to do. And the Peaceful Solution does not teach that. So people, you're going to be training people that already have that mentality. That, hey, I don't have a problem stepping over you if that's what I need to do to get there. Okay? So, how we teach this program is very important, okay? Very important. So the more that we reiterate these words, the more effective we will be. Okay, so ranking our value, the way we rank our values is important, and remind people, be mindful of what you consider important, because that's what's going to determine, how you decide to do one thing or another. Okay, so your next highlight is going to be on page 11, and the title of that page is The Importance of Moral Values to Character. One of the key factors that distinguishes character from personality is called moral values or principles. Okay, so you want to remind them those are interchangeable. Moral values clearly separate what is right from wrong. And here you might have to reiterate what is considered right and what is considered wrong. Okay, because I remember at a staff meeting one time, one lady asked, it's like, well, but we could have a debate right there as to what you consider right or what I consider right. And, my answer was, well, in the peaceful solution, there is no debate. It's very simple. You answer the 3 questions. What I'm about to say or do, will it hurt me? What I'm about to say or do, will that hurt someone else? What I'm about to say or do, does it hurt anyone's property or my environment? So it's simple. And I remind them, and hurting someone is not always a physical thing. So these definitions, these things sometimes have to be reiterated so it might not just be enough for you to say right or wrong. You might want to remind them, it's simple. It's not complicated. If you're not hurting anyone, including yourself, or anyone's property, then it's a right choice. Then there's nothing wrong with your choice. But most of us, and remind them, and most of us don't always stop to consider those things. So we're learning to be considerate and mindful of everything we say and everything we do. Because when we're teaching responsibility, yes, responsibility means get there on time, complete your duties, do all your assignments, and do it to the very best of your ability. But that includes taking responsibility for the things you say and for the things you do. We must start teaching people that, no, I'm not going to blame the bartender if I make a choice to get inebriated. I am responsible for that choice. And we have to, the more we reiterate these things in the smallest suggestions that people make, okay, you'll start seeing how they start realizing, hey, yeah, that's right. Why should I hold somebody else accountable for my choices? Okay? On that same page, okay, so that was on paragraph 1. The underlined words are key, okay? So you have them highlighted, and I underlined them for you so that you know they're going to be on your test. Okay, so underline or highlight in your book. Okay, the second portion is there's the 3 basic categories of morality, and those need to be highlighted. And it goes back. Our behavior and attitude towards all life, our behavior and attitude towards possessions and property, includes ours and includes our neighbors. Okay? Behavior and attitude towards the environment. And always, again, these are the little, messages that we include when we're reminding them, yes, the environment is talking about the streets and the trees and the lakes and the oceans, yes. Okay? But it also includes your space, the space around you, that's your environment. We have our home environment, we have our work environment. So whatever behavior and attitude that I choose, I have to remember it does affect the people around me. That's included in that environment that we're talking about. Okay? So notice how detailed sometimes you might have to get because, again, these people that you're training to train others, okay, none of us think exactly the same way, and none of us process information exactly the same way, okay? And because of those things, we have to remember, I don't know if when I say environment, everybody understands or everybody pictures. It's everyone around me, okay? Because, again, all you have to do is turn on your television or look at the articles in the newspaper, okay? People are not mindful of their environment. People act and say things, and it doesn't matter who gets hurt along the way, okay? So think about all the things that have occurred in workplaces where people get angry, employees go back. I mean, this is why it is so important for us to really, really put into the minds of the people that we're training that that's how essential these concepts are, and that up to what level we really have to put these terms not only in our mind, but in the minds of those that we're teaching and training, okay? Our next one, your next highlight will be, another thing that I didn't put on there, just remember that another word for morals is rules, okay? That's also an acceptable word to replace or to use for morals. Okay, on page 12 is your next highlight, and those are the first 3 sentences in paragraph 1. Okay, and it says, your character is made up of many different qualities. These are called character traits. Character traits can be either positive or negative based upon your values, what you have been taught, your choices, and your experiences. Negate the negative. That's on page 16. I got really nervous because she said I only have 5 minutes. Okay, so on page 16, negate the negative. Okay, that's going to be your next highlight. Although it might be difficult to admit that we have some negative traits. Well, yes, because, I mean, it's not easy for us to recognize, you know, a lot of my actions come from me being prideful. Okay? I'm not saying it's easy to recognize these things in us. But these character traits are really the mirror that each one of us has to be looking into every day and constantly, okay? Because negate the negative means recognize what's negative in us and then strive and work to remove it, okay? Strive and work to remove it. And you tell the people you're training, none of us are totally positive or totally negative. Okay, none of us can say, I only have negative traits. And none of us can say, I only have positive character traits. Okay, we have a combination, and our responsibility individually is, I'm going to tell you, one of the things that, especially like when you're training in a group, it's very easy when somebody says something, your coworker will pop up. Oh, yes, she's this, or she's like that, or she does that wrong, or she's, you know, it's very easy to see what we consider flaws or negative traits in someone else. Okay, usually that's very easy for us to do. But the peaceful solution says you cannot change anyone. You can only work on yourself. Now, don't underestimate the power that we have to impact and influence in a positive way. Don't ever underestimate that, because you have no idea, okay, when you react positively and respectfully to a situation, you never know who's watching you. And you never know how you might have impacted that person's life. So we always have to remember these things. And you have to put these thoughts in the minds of those that you're training. You have to remind them, you know, you never know who's watching you. And you never know whose life you might change because you chose to respond respectfully and peacefully. Okay? So negate the negative, that's on page 16. And then, although it might be difficult for us to admit that we have some negative traits, changing them begins with being honest, humble, of course, and honest with ourselves. Now, here, I do want to ask this, and this is one question. These are 2 questions that you're going to also ask throughout the manual. Is respect earned or deserved? Respect is deserved. No one has to earn our respect. Is trust earned or deserved? Earned, okay? You remind people of these things constantly, okay? Because again, remember that out there, they say, well, I'll start respecting you when you earn my respect. Okay, that's a very common phrase out there. Okay, steps to eliminate negative character traits. Those are found on page 18. Okay, and that's just something that you want to know where it is. And you want to know that there's 9 steps that help us eliminate negative character traits. How does personality affect the workplace? That's on page 19. Okay, and one of the things that you also want to remind yourself and remind the people you're training is, it is very easy to confuse personality with character, okay? And we want to also share some of the examples of personality in the workplace, okay? Because on page 20, there's an activity, and it says, what's your personality? And it says, this activity, one of the points that I need to make on that is that it is different from the activity found in the character unit. So you need to familiarize yourself with the traits that are found on page 20, okay? And you want to remind people, a lot of us can clash with personality, you know. Some of us might be too loud, too extrovert. I mean, I myself am very reserved and very quiet. People don't usually even know that I am there. You know, I hear some laughter, so some of you know that's true. But, so our personalities can conflict sometimes because you may say, well, she laughs all the time. She's too loud, you know. But, and that's okay that we're different that way, okay? However, you have to realize that a person's character is really, truly what we need to be looking at, okay? Because, yes, I am a little loud and I do laugh a lot, but I'm hardworking and I'm honest, and I really do try to be very compassionate and merciful, in my dealings. So, so just because I might be too loud, doesn't mean I'm mean or I don't take things seriously because you always hear me laughing. So those are just things that we have to look past a person's personality and remember that it's a person's character that we need to focus on, okay? Because we might be, robbing ourselves of a great friendship just because we think, well, she's so opposite me, And so we have to remember these things, okay? So thank you so much for your time. And I really, really appreciate you all being here. And we will see you. I'm going to pass it over to the next teacher, and we'll see you next week, okay? Thank you for your time.
All right, everyone. We are going to continue on. If you want to flip over to page 23, we are going to jump into chapter 2 for our review. Okay, so page 23. Chapter 2, and it's entitled Self-Control, the Essential Ingredient to a Successful Work Environment. We're going to want to highlight the first sentence on that page. Okay, self-control means not yielding to impulsive thoughts or actions. Okay, self-control means not yielding to impulsive thoughts and actions. And we're also going to highlight the next two sentences, which says the ability to stop, think, and then proceed on with the right choice is self-control and is essential for all employees to acquire, demonstrate at all times in order to have a peaceful work environment. Self-control is the foundation of all positive character and is what enables us to make responsible and respectful choices. Okay, and we're also going to highlight the first sentence of paragraph 2. Okay, the first sentence in paragraph 2, where it says self-control, like other character traits, needs to be developed over time. Hence, the need for training employees how to develop self-control is an imperative part of a successful work environment. So for page 23, we should have the first 3 sentences of paragraph 1 and the first sentence of paragraph 2. Okay, so that's for page 23. So we're going to jump over to page 30. All right, and page 30 is entitled, Just What is Self-Control? You're going to want to highlight or make note of the self-control definition here. Self-control means not yielding to impulsive thoughts and actions. And you can make a reference here for your notes that this is the same definition that's given on page 23, just so you have it for reference. So for self-control is not yielding to impulsive thoughts and actions. And then we're going to highlight the first sentence underneath the definition, where it says self-control requires learning. To control your thoughts, because thoughts lead to feelings, controlling your feelings, because feelings lead to actions, and controlling your actions, because actions can lead to consequences or rewards. And you're going to want to underline that first 4 words. Self-control requires learning. Okay, so you don't have to highlight the entire sentence, but if you have those 4 words, that's what you're going to want to have highlighted. All right, we're going to jump over to page 32. And at the top of page 32, you're going to highlight the definition for a trigger. It says a trigger is an incident that stirs up the emotion of anger, frustration, and resentment. Okay, a trigger is an incident that stirs up the emotion of anger, frustration, or resentment. Now, how would you know if a trigger stirs up anger that it can trigger other things too? And that's a question that you can ask yourself or you can pose to ask your students. And the answer is because in the self-control unit, we learned that a trigger is a secondary emotion. So something caused you to be angry, which means if something triggered you to be angry, it can trigger you to do something else as well, because it's just an emotion that bounced off of something else. All right, we're also going to highlight in the paragraph underneath the example here, where it says, once you have identified your triggers, the next step is to honestly determine the thoughts that they evoke. Positive thoughts help you to be optimistic and to find ways to handle the situation in a beneficial way. Okay, so we're going to highlight those two sentences of paragraph 1. And then the first sentence of paragraph 2. It says, negative thoughts, on the other hand, fuel anger, are disrespectful to others and ourselves, and seek only to justify our own actions. Okay, so for page 32, we should have the definition for trigger at the top, 2 sentences of paragraph 1, and the first sentence of paragraph 2. Okay, and then we're going to move into page 33. And you're going to want to highlight where it says the effects of negative thoughts. The effects of negative thoughts. And we're going to highlight the bottom sentence of that paragraph, the last sentence, where it says, knowing the dangers of negative thoughts and the havoc they can wreak on our personal and professional lives should be a strong motivating force to learn how to control them. Okay, so we have the last sentence of that paragraph. And you'll want to remember to remind your students when it comes to negative thoughts, don't shelve them, deal with them. Because sometimes whenever we have a negative thought, people say, it's too overwhelming, I can't deal with that right now, I'm going to put it on my shelf. Or I personally have boxes. I put my things in boxes, and this is what I'll deal with this when I get to this point. And when I get here, I can deal with this. And this goes in this box. So when I get to an emotional point where I can handle this, then I'll come back to it. But to help our students to understand, if you need to categorize yours, you put them in boxes, you do bullet points, whatever works in your mind. But to remind them that you have to deal with your thoughts. You can't always shelve them, because when your shelf becomes too full, everything collapses. And that's how it will work with negativity in your mind. All right, we're also going to highlight the quote at the bottom of page 33, where it says, harboring negative thoughts can literally be compared to drinking poison. Okay, harboring negative thoughts can literally be compared to drinking poison. And remember, way back in the self-control unit, we talked about, when you get angry at a situation, it's like drinking the poison and expecting the other person to die. You're festering, this is building inside of you, but the other person has no idea what's going on. That poison sits inside of your body. All right, so we're going to go over to page 35. And for those of you who've done reviews with us, we go fast. So we're going to try to go slow so that everyone can keep up with us, but we are going to get through the review so that we can move into our test. All right, so page 35, we're going to highlight the 4 points that are from page 35 to 36. So if you just highlight the bolded points, where number 1 is take a moment to analyze what you are thinking. Okay, so point number 1, we're going to highlight that. Point number 2, narrow down those thoughts. Okay, narrow down those thoughts. And this part of the lesson personally stuck with me the most, because we're always evaluating our thoughts, and as we've been through, taking the course of the Peaceful Solution from the character unit on, we've been aware of our thoughts. But this section really, and if you have time, I encourage you to go back through this if you find yourself struggling with negative thoughts about yourself, others, your workplace, your environment, because it helped me, because when I say always or never, I realize this is a generalized thought. This isn't all or nothing. I'm saying everything is always like this, and in reality, it's not. I feel overwhelmed in that moment, so I think everything is like that. But everything's not always like that. So this is very important if you do find yourself as someone who does have negative thoughts on a regular basis, to help yourself categorize it and then force your mind to reprogram it, to change it to the positive in the moment. All right, on page 36, point number 3, give yourself a break. Okay, give yourself a break. And point number 4 is negate the negative. So we're going to highlight those 4 bold points. And at the bottom of page 36, where it says changing negative thoughts to positive ones won't be easy at first, but it can be done. It takes determination and practice, practice, practice. Okay, so we have those 4 points and then the quote at the bottom of page 36. All right, we're going to jump over to page 38. And page 38 says, use self-control to handle your emotions. Don't let your emotions handle you. So you're going to want to underline, highlight, asterisk that, however you choose to do it in your book. But that heading there. Use self-control to handle your emotions and don't let your emotions handle you. All right, and we're also going to highlight the first sentence here of the paragraph 1, where it says, learning to handle emotions appropriately is another area where self-control is needed. Emotions can run the gamut, and we are just as susceptible to this wide range of emotions in our work environments as we are in our personal lives. Anger, hostility, jealousy, resentment, and competitiveness are only some of the negative emotions we may have to conquer in order to improve our interactions and productivity while at work. And we do want to key in on the word competitiveness, because when they were going over this lesson, they really did key in on that, because it's something that in society today, it's something that is encouraged, that you compete against those around you. You compete against your coworker, you compete to be manager, you compete to see who's the best employee of the month, employee of the day, employee of the year. But we start them from a child, and then they're always competing. But what occurred with competing with yourself? That's the only person you should ever compete with, is whoever you were yesterday, you should be better today. And whoever you're going to be tomorrow should be better than you are today. So we really want to key in on that, because it is a negative emotion, because not only can it create pride without people realizing it, but it also can create a sense of self-doubt, loneliness, a lack of confidence, because you're constantly competing with those around you, that if you never feel that you measure up, sometimes people will just quit trying. And we never want our employees or our friends or our family to ever fall into that state of emotion. All right, so that word competitiveness. Remember what society teaches, but remember peaceful solution knowledge. Remember what we've learned. All right, we're going to go into page 40. And the top of page 40, you're going to want to highlight the heading, which says, let your choices lead you to success. Let your choices lead you to success. And we are going to highlight the quote at the bottom of that page, where it says, your thoughts determine how you perceive the world around you. Okay, your thoughts determine how you perceive the world around you. All right, and that one is so important because, as you go through the peaceful solution, the one thing that we're most alert of and constantly reminded of is being aware of our thoughts. Thoughts lead to feelings, and feelings lead to actions, but being aware of your thoughts. And how sometimes you'll be doing something and a thought will come in your mind and it's not something you would normally think, and you're not really sure where it came from, that you recognize it's an influence from something you heard, something you read, someone around you might have said it, and now it's in your head. Why am I thinking this way? It's not who I am, it's not who I want to be, but the thought is in my head no matter what. So being aware of that. All right, we're going to go into page 41. Page 41, you're going to want to highlight also the heading, which says, stem the tide of violence in the workplace with self-control. Okay, stem the tide of violence in the workplace with self-control. And you're going to want to highlight the sentence at the bottom. Let's see, we're going to highlight the first sentence of paragraph 1, which is, a lack of self-control in the workplace can be dangerous and even fatal. And then the first sentence of the last paragraph on that page, which says, being trained in character education will help you to handle stressful situations at work and in your personal life. Okay, so first sentence of the last paragraph. All right, now here's a question. If you were asked if a lack of self-control can lead to death in your workplace, what would the answer be? If you were asked if a lack of self-control can lead to death in your workplace, what would your answer be? The answer would be yes. And we went over that on this page. They talked about how not having self-control through anger, it can cause loss of life. People can bring in they can bring in guns, they can bring a bomb into their workplace. Not too long ago in Austin, somebody flew a plane into their business because they were angry of how their employee treated them. So there's lots of ways that can cause death or can cause damage to a person. All right, we're also going to highlight the points on the bottom of page 41 to 42. So there's 8 points, and you're going to want to highlight those. Point number 1 is never take threats made toward anyone in your work environment as irrelevant or as a joke. Okay, so the bottom of page 41, that's point number 1. Point number 2, be aware of a coworker who exhibits aggressive or destructive behavior towards inanimate objects when they're frustrated or angry. And then flipping over to page 42, we're going to continue on with points 3 through 8, which says report any coworker who threatens, intimidates, or bullies others. 4, be aware of someone who is bullied or intimidated by others who haven't yet been trained in the peaceful solution. Number 5, notice if a coworker becomes withdrawn or sullen over a period of time and let the supervisor know. Point 6, pay attention to a coworker who resents correction and makes derogatory remarks about it to others, especially when with any threatening words. 7, observe anyone who develops a grudge towards another worker because unresolved issues can fester until they explode one day. And point number 8, be aware of the person who is highly confrontational and verbally or physically intimidating. He or she has no reservations about letting others know when they are not pleased about something. And the reason that these points are so important is if you find yourself in your workplace and you either fall into the gossip ring or you find that people constantly are coming to you complaining about the people in your work area or complaining about the supervisor or the manager in your work area, if you find yourself in the midst of that, ask yourself why someone feels comfortable degrading their employees, their boss, their coworkers. Why do they feel comfortable coming to you? And that's why in these points you always want to observe, you want to be aware, because if they feel comfortable coming to you, then that means that this is a comfortable place for negativity. And we have to find a way to negate that. And the best way to do that is to ask them, did you bring it to the supervisor's attention? If somebody is letting you know what your coworker did to them, well, is this a problem? Did you bring it to the coworker, or did you bring it to your supervisor's attention? Did you take it to the manager? Well, no, because they never listen. Do it again. Remember what we learned all the way back in elementary series, and you're always going to remind them. You continue to do it. If a bully bullies you, you don't stop because this person didn't listen, the teacher didn't listen, the principal didn't listen. You go to the next person, and you go to the next person until the problem is resolved. And it's the same way in the work area. If one supervisor is busy, you take it to the next one. And if that one is busy, you keep taking it to them, and you take it to them until the situation is resolved. Because if everybody is against the manager or the managers are against their employees, the work doesn't get done because there's no trust. All right, we're going to go into the bottom of page 42, and we're going to highlight the middle of that paragraph where it says the overall atmosphere. We're going to highlight that paragraph where it says the overall atmosphere of your workplace environment might also influence the choices that people make. As an employee, you might have little or no input into how the business is run. If there are decisions and procedures put into place that you don't like or agree with, you can practice self-control and handle the situation appropriately by doing what you are told rather than resisting instructions or complaining about it. All right, and that continues to tie in with what we went over in chapter 8 with the managers, where it builds that team. So you're not just a whole group of people working towards the same thing, but you're a team, and you're building that trust and that foundation. All right, we're going to flip over to page 47 and go into chapter 3. Okay, chapter 3 is entitled Mine, Yours, and Theirs, Ownership in the Workplace. And we're going to highlight the first sentence of the overview, where it says a lack of respect for the concept of ownership in the workplace can be frustrating and can cause conflicts and hostilities. Okay, so we're going to highlight that first sentence of page 47. And then we are going to flip over to page 52, page 52, is entitled Obtaining Belongings. And these are a list of 5 ways that you can obtain your belongings honestly. You can buy the things that you need or want. You can be given things in exchange for work done. You can receive them as gifts. You can inherit them, and you can trade for them. And some other ways that employees can receive gifts as in their employment is through safety performance, when you meet your quota, bonuses, or rewards. So those are ways to add to this list. As an employee, you can receive gifts honestly from either safety and performance. You've outperformed what you were expected. You've done more. You met your quota, so you get bonuses at certain times of the year, or you have a reward. All right, that the first paragraph underneath those points, we're also going to highlight that. Where it says acquiring an item in any other way means that it has not been legally obtained and therefore has been stolen. If an item is illegally obtained, you do not have rights to it and cannot make decisions concerning it. In essence, it is not yours. Okay, and that is so important when coming to this chapter of chapter 3, because in the character unit, we learned about finders, keepers, losers, weepers. Just because you find something that is lost and it's in your possession right now, if you didn't honestly obtain it into your possession, then it does not rightfully belong to you. It's just in your possession. The rights of ownership were not kept. All right, we're going to jump over to page 54. '54 is entitled Accept Another's Decision. We're going to highlight that first sentence of paragraph 1, where it says not being able to accept someone's decisions about their belongings is also a violation of the rights of ownership and usually results in conflicts and hurt feelings. Okay, and then we're going to highlight the third paragraph, where it says ownership goes both ways. Just as we want others to respect our property and to ask before touching or taking anything, however big or small, we must offer the same care and concern to others. And our last highlight for page 54 is our definition on the bottom right. For borrow. Borrow means to have the owner's consent to use his belongings for an agreed upon amount of time. So for page 54, we should have paragraph 1, paragraph 3, and the definition for borrow. Okay, paragraph 1, paragraph 3, and the definition for borrow. And then we're going to go over to page 55. And on the bottom right side, we're going to highlight the definition for the word vandalism. Vandalism is to purposefully or willfully damage or destroy anything that belongs to another. Okay, so vandalism is to purposely or willfully damage or destroy anything that belongs to another. Right? And one thing you want to make a note for on this page is to read this page carefully to better understand how to handle workplace items. So if you were teaching this and somebody wasn't sure the rights of ownership or how to properly use the items in their workplace, that's the page that you would send them to. Okay, so page 55. So we're going to jump to page 59, and we're moving into chapter 4. So we are halfway there. Page 59, chapter 4. Ask, more than just a 3-letter word. And we're going to highlight the first sentence in paragraph 2. The first sentence in paragraph 2. And it says, asking to touch or use or borrow an item and then abiding by the decision the owner makes shows self-control and respect. But that's only part of the benefits of asking. Learning to ask to fulfill our needs also denotes responsibility as well as honesty. Okay, so page 59, we have the first sentence of paragraph 2. And we're going to move on to page 65. And page 65, we're going to highlight the first sentence, which is a question on the top of that page, where it says, have you ever made an assumption that resulted in loss of time or loss of finances because you neglected to ask for an explanation, permission, or instruction? Hey, have you ever made an assumption that resulted in loss of time, finances, because you neglected to ask for an explanation, permission, or instruction? And then we're going to highlight the first two sentences at the bottom of the last paragraph. So the first two sentences of the last paragraph, where it says, asking in the workplace is an important aspect of respecting our peers, those in authority, and the rules and guidelines related to our jobs. When we do not take the time to ask, we can make costly mistakes and cause serious problems in our work areas, problems that can result in loss of time, embarrassment, and even loss of employment. All right, so we're going to flip over to page 66. And on page 66, it's entitled, Asking Means to Seek Permission. So we are going to highlight all of paragraph 2. Okay, so all of paragraph 2 on page 66. It says, when we remember to ask permission first, we have an opportunity to show respect to the owner of the belonging. This also allows the individual to make choices concerning his or her possession and will prevent invading another's privacy. People value others who take the time to ask before touching. This helps to build a rapport that can enhance your work relationships as well as developing trust and lasting friendships. Okay, so for page 66, we're going to highlight the entirety of paragraph 2. All right, then we're going to move over to page 68. And on page 68, we're going to highlight the quote at the bottom, where it says, asking saves time and helps you do the job right the first time. And remember, asking shows the strength of someone's character. Okay, so when we're asking, when we take the time to ask, it shows the strength of your character because it shows your honesty, shows your humility, shows respect, shows responsibility. It really boosts the amount of positive traits that you have when you take the time to ask. Even if it's in a difficult situation or you're uncomfortable with approaching the person you have to ask the answer from, it shows a strength in your character. All right, we're going to go to page 69. And the bottom of page 69, we're going to highlight that quote there. It says, asking can keep you safe and guard against danger. Okay, asking can keep you safe and guard against danger. Then we're going to flip over to page 70. And again, we're going to highlight the quote at the bottom of that page. Asking shows respect for authority, the rules, and policies. Asking shows respect for authority, the rules, and the policies. And then on to page 71, we're going to highlight the quote at the bottom of that page also, where it says, asking can avoid embarrassing situations. And then flipping over to page 72, again, you're going to highlight the quote at the bottom of that page. So you're seeing a pattern for these last few pages. All right, the quote at the bottom on page 72. Asking respects the rights of ownership. Okay, so for page 70, 71, 72, and 73, we're going to highlight the quotes at the bottom. So page 73, asking minimizes or avoids conflicts between coworkers. Asking minimizes or avoids conflicts between coworkers. All right, so that's going to end our review for tonight. I want to end by sharing a quick story with you since we are in asking. A few weeks ago, I had something occur, and I was like, this will be perfect to share in class. So I was doing this job, and it was a wall upholstery. Okay, so if you've ever seen a wall, you ever put wallpaper on it? Well, where I work, we use fabric, and you can pick any pattern, design, and you put fabric on the walls. So I was doing a wall for someone, and they told me, we're going to say it was 363 inches. Okay, so that's the size of the wall. Now, the material has to go up the bolt, which means you only have 54 inches. So you have to piece 54, 54, 54 until you get 363 inches. So I did the wall, and I was done. They went in-house to install it, and they called me, and they said, we're 20 inches too short. I need you to come pick it up, add 20 inches, and then bring it back. I'm like, okay, so I go in-house, I pick it up, I take it back to my work, I add the 20 inches on the right side because it didn't seem to make sense. So I took the small piece off and I added a full piece. So not only did they have 20 inches, they had 32 extra inches. Okay, so they have 12 inches more than they need. So I take it back to them. 2 hours later, I get a call and they say, now you're 30 inches short. How were you 20 inches short and now you're 30 inches short? And I was so confused because they had 12 extra inches. How were they short? So this is the funny part of why asking is so important. I added to the right side of the material, but the way the wall goes, they needed it on the left side of the material. So the wall fit, but the seam is off-cornered of where it's supposed to be. So I want to pose a question to you. I added the extra 20 inches like I was told. Did I follow my instructions and was the job done right? And this is an important lesson to learn in your workplace because the job was finished, the job is completed, but the job was not done right. And it's important in your workplace that you understand that because sometimes we do the job and it's like, listen, I don't know why you're complaining. You told me to do the job, I finished it, it was done. But it wasn't done correctly. And it's important that you do it correctly, but you also ask questions. Because I guarantee you, if I have to do another wall upholstery, I'm going to be saying, do I need to add it to the left or the right? And I guarantee you the person I'm working with is going to ask, now I need this on the left side. Okay, repeat it back, the left side, so that we make sure that you don't run into those situations again. All right, so we're going to stop there. Next week, we're going to pick up on page 74 and continue on with our review. I thank you all so much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you back here next week so that we can finish our last book and become working towards being certified. I hope everyone has a wonderful week. Bye, everyone.